My name is Ethan Brooks, 38 years old, and I've spent the last 4 years of my life designing bridges across Germany. I'm the youngest of three, the quiet one, the one who always seemed to be in the shadow of my older siblings, especially Raymond, who was always the golden child. He's got the charm, the looks, and the legacy my parents have always pushed him to inherit. I've always felt like the outsider, not quite fitting in with the perfect image they tried to present. And it's not just my siblings. The whole damn world seems to have forgotten about me, even though I've worked tirelessly, all for my family's future. But nothing prepares you for the gut-wrenching shock of walking into your childhood home only to find your daughter chained in a basement, alone, starving, and abandoned. My parents had always promised they'd take care of her, but they weren't home when I returned. They were gone on vacation, leaving me to face the nightmare alone. What I didn't know then was that this was only the beginning of a twisted game where I was nothing more than a pawn. And as the truth slowly unraveled, I realized there's no going back from this. I stepped off the plane at Cleveland International, the late-night air thick with memories. 4 years away. 4 years of emails and Skype calls, promises to my daughter, Lucy, that I'd be back. I hadn't told anyone I was coming, not even my parents. I wanted it to be a surprise. I wanted to walk through that front door, and for the first time in years, feel like I was home. But the feeling of home was an illusion. The rental car hummed along the empty highway as I drove toward the house I grew up in. The house my parents promised would always be there when I returned. I had this image in my head, Lucy running to me, her chubby little arms wrapping around my legs. Her laughter, her smile. But now, as the streetlights blurred past, all I felt was dread. I arrived at the house a little before midnight. The driveway was empty. The lights in the windows were off. I pulled into the gravel and sat there for a moment, unsure. Something wasn't right. My parents had always kept the lights on late. And Lucy, she should have been awake, waiting for me. A part of me wondered if they knew I was coming back, but no one had answered my calls. Still, I shrugged it off and stepped out of the car. The cold air slapped me in the face. I grabbed the keys from my pocket and walked toward the door. I expected the familiar creak of the wooden floorboards, the warmth of the house. But as I stepped inside, the silence hit me. The house was unnervingly still. I called out for Lucy. No answer. I turned around, expecting my mother or father to appear, but nothing. I walked deeper into the house, the hairs on my neck standing up. The smell of dust and old wood filled the air. This wasn't the house I remembered. The warmth I had once associated with the place was gone. I made my way to the kitchen. Nothing. No plates in the sink, no flickering light from the TV. The place was as empty as a ghost town. I checked the clock on the wall. It was 12:15 a.m. My parents should have been here by now. I tried calling my mother again, but it went straight to voicemail. Panic started to creep in. I walked toward the stairs, each step feeling heavier than the last. Lucy's room was at the end of the hall. I held my breath as I approached the door. I could hear the faintest sound, a muffled noise that seemed out of place. I froze. Was it Lucy? Was she awake? I opened the door slowly, not wanting to startle her. The sight I was met with almost stopped my heart. There she was, curled up on the cold floor of the basement, her body thin, trembling, and barely breathing. Her once bright eyes were now dull, and her skin had the sickly color of someone who hadn't seen sunlight in weeks. She looked like a ghost of the daughter I once knew. My legs shook as I dropped to my knees beside her. She was chained. Her ankle was bound by a thick, rusted iron link, the padlock digging into her skin. Her tiny body was covered in bruises, her shirt barely hanging on. I reached out, my hands trembling as I touched her frail shoulder. Her eyes fluttered open, a weak, strained whisper escaping her lips. "Daddy, you came back. You came to get me?" I couldn't speak. I just held her, the weight of what I was seeing suffocating me. My mind raced. How could this happen? How could they do this to her? I yanked at the chain, desperate to free her, but the padlock was too strong. I searched around the basement for something, anything, to break the lock. My mind was a blur. I couldn't think. I had to get her out of there. In the corner of the room, I saw a rusty wrench lying on the ground. I grabbed it and slammed it against the lock with every ounce of strength I had. Each hit sent a shockwave through my body, but the lock didn't budge. I swung harder. Sweat mixed with tears as I tried again. Finally, with one last strike, the lock gave way. I pulled her into my arms and sprinted toward the stairs, the cold concrete beneath my feet slapping with each step. But just as I reached the top, my phone buzzed in my pocket. I pulled it out and saw a message from my mother. "Where are you? Come home now, we need to talk." I froze. My heart skipped a beat. How long had they known? How much had they planned? I ignored the message, but the unease in my stomach grew heavier. I had to get Lucy out. I had to make sure she was safe. But the truth was, nothing would be the same. Not after this. The front door burst open. Someone was outside. I spun around, a wave of cold fear crashing over me. The sound of footsteps grew louder. My heart pounded in my chest. And then I heard the voice I least expected. "Ethan, we need to talk." The door slammed shut behind me, and I knew, in that instant, there was no going back. I felt the blood rush to my head as I stood frozen in the doorway, staring at my father's voice in the shadows. It wasn't just the cold, or the night that felt off. It was the way everything had gone wrong in an instant. Raymond's face remained unreadable. Behind him, the hallway was just as still as the house. There was no sound, no movement, nothing that suggested normality. I wanted to scream, but my body refused to react. My eyes flickered down to Lucy in my arms, her small body limp and frail, each shallow breath rattling in her chest. I had spent 4 years building bridges, designing something strong, something lasting. I couldn't build anything now, nothing strong enough to fix this. "I didn't expect you back so soon," Raymond said, his voice smooth like ice. "But I suppose you've got questions now." I gritted my teeth, stepping forward, my gaze never leaving him. "You're one of the last people I want answers from. Where the hell is Mom?" "She's," Raymond started, but the words faltered in his throat. He glanced over his shoulder as though making sure the room was empty. I didn't wait for him to finish, walking past him into the living room. The place looked untouched, not a sign that anything had gone wrong. It was like stepping into a vacuum. And that was the problem. This place was a vacuum, sucking in every piece of light, every shred of warmth, and leaving nothing but cold, empty air. I turned back to Raymond. "Where is she, Raymond? What the hell is going on?" He sighed, the sound slow and deliberate. "It's not what you think, Ethan." "Then tell me what it is, because right now, I can't even tell if you're the enemy or just another part of the damn trap." I clenched my fists, the adrenaline kicking in as my body shook with fury. I could feel the walls closing in on me. Everything I knew, my family, my home, was a lie. I had walked back into a nightmare. Raymond took a step toward me, his face softening into something more familiar. "You don't get it. This is bigger than us. Bigger than you. And the more you fight it, the worse it will be for everyone." I stared at him, my pulse roaring in my ears. "Is Lucy a part of your plan too, Raymond? Is that why she's locked up in the goddamn basement?" His eyes flashed with something, anger. Fear? Maybe both. He wiped a hand across his face and looked away. "You don't know what you're dealing with. Then tell me. Tell me everything." I could feel the air growing thicker, more suffocating. The tension between us was like a live wire, and I was on the verge of snapping. But Raymond wasn't done. "I told you," he began, his voice colder now, "this is about power. About control. You've always been a pawn in this game, Ethan. You always will be." I stepped closer to him, fists clenched. "What does that make Lucy?" You're a pawn too? Raymond flinched but quickly recovered, his posture straightening. She's part of the plan, Ethan. The moment you came back, we knew you'd mess everything up. You think they don't watch? That they don't know? This isn't just about family, it's about... The sound of a car door slamming shut outside interrupted him. My eyes shot to the window. I couldn't see who it was, but something about the way the door had sounded made my skin prickle. Raymond noticed my shift in focus, and his gaze darkened. Don't. Whatever you think this is, it's bigger than you. Before I could respond, the door opened with a slow creak, and a voice I hadn't heard in years cut through the silence. Ethan. I turned slowly, every muscle in my body tensing. Marlene. My mother. She stood there, framed by the doorway. Her face was pale, her eyes shadowed with something I couldn't place. It was like looking at a stranger who was wearing my mother's face. Her once calm demeanor had dissolved, leaving behind a woman I didn't recognize. I didn't know you were back, she said, her voice shaking. But there was something in the way she said it. Like she was stalling. I took a step toward her, my voice low but seething with anger. What the hell is going on? Why is Lucy chained up in the basement? Marlene's eyes darted briefly to Raymond before she turned back to me, her lips trembling. It's not what you think, Ethan. You don't understand. Then explain it to me. I'm done guessing. The words shot out like bullets, sharp and angry. Every fiber of my being screamed at me to demand answers. Raymond took a step forward, but I raised a hand to stop him. The air felt like it was getting thicker by the second, suffocating, and every second that ticked by felt like a weight on my chest. Why did you do it? I asked, my voice barely a whisper now. Why Lucy? What did she ever do to you? Marlene's eyes filled with tears. She opened her mouth to speak, but before she could say anything, the sound of another car door slamming outside caught my attention. My heart skipped a beat. My instincts screamed at me. They weren't alone. I turned to Raymond, eyes wide with realization. You knew this was coming. You knew they were going to find me. His face tightened, and for the first time, I saw fear in his eyes. Ethan, you need to get out of here. Now. It's too late. Before I could react, the front door slammed open. A man stepped into the house. Tall. Broad. Ice cold, calculating. Too late for what, Raymond? The voice was smooth but menacing. My blood turned cold. I didn't know who this man was, but I knew enough. I was in the lion's den. And now, the game had changed. The walls weren't just closing in anymore, they were collapsing. The man's lips curled into a smile. Your time's up, Ethan. And that was when I realized everything I thought I knew, everything I believed in, was about to shatter. The truth was a luxury I could no longer afford. The moment the man stepped through the door, my heart stopped. The sound of his boots hitting the floor seemed to echo in my mind, filling the space between us with a cold, suffocating silence. His gaze never left me, calculating, predatory. I had no idea who he was, but I knew he wasn't here for a friendly chat. Ethan, Raymond said, his voice barely above a whisper. He stepped closer, but I held up a hand to stop him. My mind was a blur, panic clawing at the edges. I had to keep it together. I had to make sure Lucy was safe. But I couldn't focus on anything but this stranger. You don't belong here, the man said, his voice like gravel. The room felt smaller, like it was closing in on me, as if everything I thought I knew was about to shatter. I didn't respond. Instead, my eyes flickered to the window. I could feel the weight of the man's presence, his gaze never leaving me. Raymond was still in the background, tense, as if he was about to say something, but nothing came out. For a split second, everything went still. And then, the man took a step forward. I think you should leave, Ethan, Raymond said, his voice flat. This is bigger than you. You won't win this fight. I looked at him, confused and furious. What the hell is going on here? I snapped. What's happening to Lucy? Raymond didn't meet my eyes. He stepped back, motioning to the man. The man took another step forward, closing the distance between us. I could feel my heart pounding, my breath shallow. The adrenaline was running through my veins now, sharp and cold. The man's lips curled into a smile, but it wasn't kind. You should have stayed away, Ethan, he said. You're in over your head. Who are you? I demanded, my fists clenched at my sides. And what the hell is this about? The man didn't answer. He just tilted his head, as if contemplating something. Raymond stood behind him, his arms folded, face hardening with each passing moment. I could feel the walls closing in, the air thick and oppressive. But it wasn't just the man that unnerved me. It was Raymond, too. I had never seen him like this before. There was no warmth in his eyes, no trace of the brother I once knew. He was a stranger now. You never were the sharpest tool in the shed, were you? The man said. Raymond thought you'd come back sooner or later. But he always thought you'd be too weak to figure it out. My mind spun as the pieces began to fall into place. I'd been away for so long, chasing success, thinking it would somehow fix everything. But now it seemed like I'd only been building a bridge to my own destruction. Lucy's not part of the plan, the man continued, his voice colder now. You should have left her alone. But now. He looked me up and down. Now, it's too late for everyone. Where is she? I said through clenched teeth. Tell me where Lucy is, now. The man smiled again, but this time it was different. His eyes glinted with something darker, something I hadn't seen before. She's right where she needs to be, he said, his words heavy with meaning. I felt a chill run through me. Everything in my body screamed to run, to find her. But I was frozen, stuck in this sickening game of cat and mouse. Raymond stepped forward now, his face hardening. You need to understand, Ethan, he said, his tone clipped, as if every word was a calculated move. There are things you don't know. Things you'll never understand. But if you care about Lucy, if you want her safe, you'll do exactly what we say. It's the only way. The tension in the room rose, thick as a storm cloud ready to burst. I could hear my breath, shallow and quick, my mind racing. My family had betrayed me in ways I could never have imagined. And now, standing here, I realized there was no escaping this. No leaving it behind. I was in it now, whether I liked it or not. Don't listen to them, I said through clenched teeth, my voice low. Where is she? Before I could react, the man reached into his jacket and pulled out a small, metallic object. A flash of light reflected off the cold steel. My heart skipped a beat as he held it up. A key. The basement, he said, his voice soft now, almost mocking. Your little girl's down there. And there's no one coming to save you. The words hit like a punch to the gut. I didn't wait for him to say anything more. I pushed past him, heading straight for the stairs. The air in the house felt even colder now, the silence broken only by the sound of my footsteps. I reached the basement door and threw it open with a force that shocked even me. The smell of mildew and something worse hit me like a slap to the face. But it was the sight of Lucy that stopped me dead in my tracks. She was there, just as I had left her, chained, fragile, pale. But this time, her eyes were wide open, fixed on me with terror. The sight made my stomach twist. She looked so small, so helpless. Daddy. Please, she whispered, barely able to form the words. Her voice was hoarse, barely a whisper. I stepped forward, my heart breaking as I knelt beside her. The sound of the door closing behind me made my blood run cold. The man had followed me down, his footsteps slow and deliberate. You think you can just fix everything, don't you? He asked. You think you can walk in here and undo what's been done? I didn't answer. I didn't care what he thought. I only cared about getting Lucy out. I grabbed the chain, my fingers trembling as I tried to break the lock. Don't waste your time, the man said. You're too late. There's no way out now. I looked up at him, my anger boiling over. You don't know me, I spat. But just as I reached for the lock again, my phone buzzed in my pocket. I pulled it out, but it wasn't a message, it was a call. From someone I didn't recognize. My stomach dropped. The man's smile grew wider. It's already started, he said. I didn't answer. I couldn't. The words on the screen made my heart freeze. Get out of there, Ethan. You're being watched. My hand shook as I dropped the phone, and for the first time, I felt the weight of everything crashing down. I stood in the dimly lit basement, my breath shallow, my hands trembling as I looked at Lucy. The cold, musty air clung to my skin like a second layer, suffocating me. She was still chained, her body frail, too frail for someone so young. The lock that held her was a cruel reminder of how far things had gone. You don't have to do this, I whispered, my voice barely a sound. I didn't even know if she could hear me, her wide eyes too dull to catch any light. She looked as if the life had been drained from her. And maybe it had. I reached for the lock, my heart racing. We're getting out of here, I said, more to myself than to her. I could feel the man's presence behind me, cold and watching, as if waiting for me to make a mistake. But I couldn't afford that. Not now. The key, the one I had found earlier, was still in my pocket. I fumbled for it, my hands slick with sweat, my heart pounding. I needed to free her, now. This moment was everything. If I didn't act fast, there was no telling what would happen next. The man's voice broke through the tension like a knife cutting through the dark. You really think you can get away with this, he said, his tone dripping with disdain. You're too far in, Ethan. There's no escaping now. I didn't look at him. I couldn't. Every second sped away from Lucy was a second closer to losing her forever. Lucy, I murmured. I'll get you out. You're going to be okay. Just hold on. Her eyes flickered, but I couldn't tell if it was from understanding or just the feeble remnants of life clinging to her. I turned the key in the lock, but just as it clicked, a sound behind me sent my blood running cold. The door. It was opening. Someone was coming. I looked back over my shoulder, the panic rising in my chest. This wasn't part of the plan. No one was supposed to know I was here. My heart beat faster as the door creaked open, and there they were. Two men, strangers, dressed in black suits. Their presence in the basement was enough to make my stomach lurch. The taller one stepped forward, a smirk playing at the corner of his lips. Did you really think you could just walk away from this? He asked, his voice cold, calculating. I stood frozen, my hand still gripping the chain, but there was no time to act. No time to plan. The air was thick with the weight of inevitability. Every escape route I had imagined evaporated in an instant. You've really gone and messed everything up, Ethan, the man continued. His eyes, devoid of emotion, scanned the room before resting on me. You thought you could fix this? You thought you could save her? I couldn't answer. The words caught in my throat. How did everything fall apart so quickly? The second man, shorter but more imposing, stepped forward, blocking the exit. We're not here to negotiate, he said, his voice like steel. You've outlived your usefulness. My heart skipped a beat. What were they planning? What did they want with Lucy? And why did they think I was the one responsible for it all? I swallowed hard, trying to keep the panic at bay. The man in front of me reached into his jacket pocket, pulling out a phone and holding it out for me to see. The screen flickered with a single message, your family is going to pay for this. It was a threat. A clear, direct message meant to shake me, to throw me off balance. I knew it was more than a simple warning. The man's cold smile confirmed that. I didn't respond. Instead, I pulled Lucy close to me, gently, trying to shield her from their view. My mind raced, thinking of an escape plan, calculating every possible move. But the truth was, I was trapped. Trapped in a corner I had never seen coming. She's the last piece of leverage we have, Ethan, the man continued, his voice laced with venom. Once you're gone, we'll have everything. Every secret, every tie that binds you to your past. The game's over. I could feel the heat rising in my chest. Anger, fear, desperation, all of it swirling together, consuming me. But I couldn't let it show. Not now. Not in front of them. I looked down at Lucy, her pale face a stark contrast to the dark room. She was fighting to stay awake, but it was clear the damage had been done. I had to get her out of here. This couldn't be the end. Not like this. A shift in the air caught my attention. I glanced up just in time to see the first man's hand move toward his pocket. A gun. I knew what he was planning before he even made the move. The cold steel gleamed in the dim light as he raised it slowly, his finger tightening on the trigger. No! I shouted, taking a step forward, but the shorter man grabbed my arm, pulling me back. You're not in control here, Ethan, he hissed. Now, drop it. The tension in the room snapped, and I was left standing there, helpless, as the barrel of the gun pointed directly at Lucy. Time slowed. My pulse thundered in my ears. The room grew darker, the air thick with impending doom. Put the gun down, I growled, my voice a low threat. I swear to God, if you hurt her. But the man's expression didn't change. His eyes bored into mine, calculating, emotionless. The pressure built with every passing second. Suddenly, the sound of tires screeching outside shattered the silence. A car. Loud. Fast. The man's eyes flickered toward the door. For one brief moment, his guard dropped. And in that split second, I made my move. My hands gripped the chain, pulling it loose with a strength I didn't know I had. Before the man could react, I lunged forward, knocking the gun from his hand and slamming him against the wall. The second man moved, but I was faster. I kicked him in the chest, sending him stumbling back. I grabbed Lucy, pulling her close, ignoring the pain that flared in my chest. There was no more time for hesitation. We need to go, now, I muttered, rushing toward the stairs. The sound of footsteps followed, growing louder behind me. But as I reached the top of the stairs, I froze. The door was wide open. Someone else was waiting outside. Someone I didn't expect. You're too late, the voice echoed in the darkness. And just like that, the walls of my reality came crashing down. The air outside the basement was colder than I expected, the sudden rush of fresh air almost making me dizzy as I pulled Lucy through the doorway. But there was no time to think. The moment I stepped into the sunlight, I could hear them. Footsteps. Too fast, too close. They weren't far behind. I looked down at Lucy, barely conscious, her body so limp it made my stomach turn. I could hear her breathing, shallow and quick, but I had no idea how much time she had left. How much time I had left. The world was closing in. The men, the threats, the phone calls, everything was spiraling out of control. I had to get her to safety. I had to move. But where? You think you've won? The voice came from behind me, sharp and biting, like the snap of a gunshot. I didn't need to turn around to know who it was. The first man, the one who'd been watching me every step of the way, was right there. I'm not your enemy, I said, trying to keep my voice steady, though my hands were shaking. You're wasting your time. No, his tone was cold, dismissive. You're just another pawn, Ethan. You've been used. All this time, you've been playing right into our hands. I turned, catching his eyes, and for a moment, it was like the world stopped spinning. His words echoed in my head, but I couldn't make sense of them. Pawn? What did he mean? I had no idea how much deeper this web went. I had no idea how far they were willing to go. Listen to me, I said, taking a step back. I needed distance, but more importantly, I needed time. I'm getting her out of here. I'm done with this. He stepped forward, his hand gripping the gun at his side, his fingers twitching, itching. I saw the glint in his eyes, the way he looked at me, like a predator sizing up its prey. My stomach tightened. This was it. The moment I'd been running from. Tell me where the documents are, Ethan. Now. His voice was so calm it sent a chill down my spine. What documents? I spat, knowing full well that he wasn't talking about any papers or legal contracts. He was talking about something else. Something I didn't understand. His gaze hardened. You'll never understand, he said, the words lingering in the air like poison. You're in over your head. Suddenly, the distant hum of a car engine interrupted our standoff. It wasn't the screech of tires I'd heard earlier. This was different, familiar, like it had been waiting for us. My instincts screamed at me. This was the final move. I had to make it count. I pushed Lucy behind me, grabbing her arm, and began to walk away, keeping my eyes fixed on the man. Every step felt like a battle. Every breath I took was harder to manage. But the car engine grew louder. And louder. It was getting closer, faster. There was no time. Ethan, the man called, his voice low, dangerous. Don't think you can outrun this. We've been watching you. All along. I stopped in my tracks, the weight of his words hitting me like a ton of bricks. Watching me? Had they been here this whole time? Had they been tracking every move I made? How long had they known? The car screeched to a halt just a few feet from me, the headlights blinding. I turned, my heart hammering, and saw a figure step out of the driver's seat. A woman. Get in the car, she shouted. We don't have much time. I hesitated, the panic rising again. But before I could make up my mind, I heard the unmistakable click of a safety being disengaged, the sound of the gun being readied. You're not going anywhere, the man growled. Not without us. I pushed Lucy forward, shoving her toward the open car door, my chest tight with fear. Move it, the woman snapped again, this time sounding more urgent, more desperate. I could see the man coming toward us, his footsteps heavy, deliberate. It was now or never. I reached for Lucy's arm, pulling her with all the strength I had left. Get in the car. I shouted, practically throwing her into the passenger seat before slamming the door shut. I slid into the driver's side, my hand slick on the wheel, and floored the accelerator. The tires screamed in protest, but the car shot forward, jerking me into the chaos of the road. Behind me, I could see the man chasing after us, but there was no time to worry about him now. The woman was already grabbing my arm, her fingers tight and cold. You have to get us out of here, she said, her voice shaking. We're not safe. None of us are. I kept my eyes on the road, my mind a whirlwind of thoughts. There was something about her. Something familiar, but I couldn't place it. Why did she know my name? And what did she mean, we're not safe? I couldn't focus on that now. I had to keep moving, keep ahead of whatever was chasing us. Who are you? I asked, my voice almost a whisper. The woman didn't answer right away. Instead, she turned her gaze to the rearview mirror, her eyes darting nervously. I'm someone who knows what's at stake, she said, her words low, almost a warning. Someone who can help you, if you let me. I gripped the steering wheel tighter, the tension in my chest rising with every passing second. Whatever game they were playing, I was in the middle of it now. And I was going to find out the truth, one way or another. But just as I thought we might escape, just as the horizon began to open up, I saw the car behind us. They were still following. The sun hung low on the horizon as I drove down the winding road. The dust from the long days of fleeing and fighting seemed to settle in my lungs, making each breath feel heavier. Lucy sat beside me, barely conscious, her breathing shallow but steady. Every moment with her in the car felt like a race against time. Time that seemed to slip away like sand through my fingers. I glanced at her, her face pale, and my heart tightened. No matter what had happened, I couldn't let this be the end for her. I couldn't let her become another casualty in a war I never asked to be a part of. I had to save her. The headlights of the car behind us were growing nearer again. They hadn't given up. I could feel their presence like a dark cloud, lurking in the background, threatening to swallow us whole. But I had a plan. A slim, fragile plan. One that might just get us to safety, if we could hold on long enough. "Stay with me, Lucy," I whispered, reaching out to squeeze her hand. Her fingers barely twitched, but it was enough. I turned onto a side road, a hidden path that cut through dense trees and shadows. The car's tires crunched against the gravel, and for the first time in days, I felt a small glimmer of hope. But hope was fleeting. Just as I thought we might escape, a voice rang out behind me, loud and commanding. "Stop the car." I slammed my foot on the brake, the tires screeching in protest. My heart stopped for a beat, and I was ready to run, ready to get out and make a dash into the woods. But then I saw him. Nolan. The man who had been following me since the beginning. He stepped into the headlights, his face masked in shadow. His gun was raised, pointed at me. "I told you, Ethan. You're in over your head. No one gets away." His words were cold, like steel scraping against stone. But I wasn't going to die tonight. Not like this. I opened the door of the car, my heart pounding, my legs shaking, but my resolve hardening. If this was it, then so be it. I wasn't going down without a fight. "I'm not afraid of you," I said, my voice firm despite the panic clawing at my chest. Nolan's lips twisted into a mock smile. "You should be." Before I could react, there was a flash of movement behind him, a blur of light, and then a deafening crash. The sound of shattering glass. I turned just in time to see a car barreling down the path, tires screeching, slamming into Nolan with a sickening thud. The car skidded to a halt just inches from where I stood. A moment of pure chaos, like time had stopped. I froze, unsure of what to do next, until the door of the car opened, and out stepped the woman I had seen before, the one who had been guiding us, the one who knew more than she'd let on. She was panting, her face flushed, her hands trembling, but there was a fire in her eyes. A fire that I had seen in myself when I was determined to survive. "I told you," she said, her voice shaking but fierce, "you're not alone in this." I felt my knees go weak. I had been so close to losing everything, so close to losing Lucy. But here she was, saving us when I had no one else to turn to. I had underestimated her, just as I had underestimated everything else. "We're getting out of here," she said, urgency in her voice. "Now." I didn't argue. I helped Lucy out of the car and into the back of the woman's vehicle. The adrenaline still surged through my body, but the cold terror in my veins slowly began to thaw. We were finally moving. Finally free. As we drove further down the road, the sound of Nolan's car behind us faded into the distance. I glanced out the window, my mind racing with 1,000 thoughts. The fear that had consumed me for so long was slowly starting to dissipate, replaced by the realization that it wasn't just survival anymore, it was about what came next. The woman glanced at me. "You're safe now. They won't follow." But I couldn't let go of the gnawing question. "Who are you?" She gave me a small, sad smile. "Someone who's seen this kind of thing before. Someone who's paid the price for it." There was no immediate answer, no neat bow to tie everything together. But what I understood was simple. She had been running too. Running from a past she couldn't shake. And maybe that was the lesson in all of this. There's always a price. There's always a choice. But it doesn't mean you're done fighting. "Let's just get her somewhere safe," I said, finally breaking the silence. We drove in the quiet of the night, the weight of everything still hanging over me. But as I looked back at Lucy, her chest rising and falling with each breath, I felt something shift within me. Not hope. Not relief. But the knowledge that the fight wasn't over. Not for any of us. And that was the truth I had to face. "You're going to be okay," I whispered to Lucy, as the car sped down the empty road. I didn't know how long the road would be, or how far we'd have to go to outrun the past. But I did know this: family isn't always about blood. Sometimes, it's about the people who choose to fight for you, the ones who don't abandon you when everything falls apart. Maybe that was the greatest lesson of all.